some that would have moved me deeply, others that would have put me straight to sleep, if I'm being honest. But never would I picture myself in this very pulpit giving a Sunday morning message. Some of you over the years would have joked with me about becoming a priest. Gemarr, you're next in line. Gemarr, you're youth coordinator, soon to be parish priest, and stuff like that. But I always leave it off, laugh it off. I was comfortable where I was, serving in my own way, behind the scenes. No spotlight needed. I like to say, leave that to professionals. But earlier this year, we lost someone who was very much a professional. The very Reverend Dean Emeritus. Many of you knew him personally. 25 years he served here in St. George's as parish priest before he was transferred to Antigua. When Father Smith passed back in March, it hit me harder than expected. Not because we're extremely close, but because of our last conversation we had. It was last year, April, when he was here, filling in for Canada in his absence. It was the morning after his last service. We had a brief conversation right in front of us. It was casual at first. He asked me, how's work going? How was the youth ministry? How's life treating you, stuff like that. And after I asked those lighthearted questions, things got a little serious. Like his eyes got steady. Paused, and he just looked at me. He said, Gemarr. And he pointed at this very pulpit that I'm in right now. He said, Gemarr, I could see you up there in that pulpit one day. I laughed. I laughed out loud, actually, because in my head, probably needs to get his eyes checked or something. But he didn't laugh back. He just smiled, that quiet, knowing smile. So here I am, standing in that very pulpit, and I'm pretty sure his Father Smith is somewhere smiling. But don't smile too hard, Father Smith. This isn't confirmation. This is just obedience, temporary obedience. This morning I want to talk to you about calling, not the formal kind, not altar calls or ordination papers. I mean the quiet nudge, the thing that keeps tapping you on the shoulder when you're trying to do literally anything else. A lot of us growing up grow up thinking that calling is reserved for certain people. The holy ones, the ones who got their lives together. The ones who pray eloquently and never doubt. Wake up every morning excited to do God's will. If that's what calling requires, then you can count me out, and you can count most of us out, if we want to be honest. But here's what I've come to understand. And Father Smith understood this better than most. Calling isn't about titles or positions, or standing behind a microphone. It's about direction. Which way are your feet pointed? Whether you're walking towards something or away from something. When Father Smith looked at me and said he could see me on the pulpit, he wasn't necessarily predicting my career path or filling out papers in his head. He was naming something he recognized. A willingness, a capacity I hadn't acknowledged yet. He spent 5 decades doing that for young people. Seeing things in them before they see themselves. That was his gift. Now I want to take you to an Old Testament story that I've been sitting with. It's about a man named Jonah. Jonah was a prophet. But when God came to him and said, go to Nineveh and preach against its wickedness, Jonah said, absolutely not. He got up and went in the complete opposite direction. He boarded a ship to Tarshish, paid his fare, settled below the deck, and he went to sleep. That man literally tried to outrun an all-knowing, all-present God. And now we know what happened next. A storm came. Not a little drizzle, but an actual after violent tempests that threatened to break the ship apart. Seasoned sailors were terrified, crying to their gods, throwing cargo overboard, all while Jonah slept. They woke him up, they cast last and the lot fell on Jonah, and eventually, at his own suggestion, they threw him into the sea. Now here's where the story gets interesting for me. Jonah is sinking, the water's closing over his head, seaweed wrapped around his neck. He's going down to the roots of the mountains. It's over. This is how it ends for the reluctant prophet. Drowned at sea, running from a call he didn't know. But God wasn't finished. God provided a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah sat in the belly of that fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, I want you to hear what Jonah prayed for inside that fish. Found in Jonah chapter 2, verse 2, he said, I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction. He answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. That's wrong. That's desperate. That's a man who has run out of all his own options, sitting in the dark, covered in whatever is inside a fish's stomach, and finally turning back to God. Not because he had a change of heart, not because he suddenly felt qualified, but because he had nowhere else to go. And here's what amazes me. God heard him. God didn't say, oh, now you want to talk to me? After you got on that boat and you tried to run? No, God heard him. And God delivered him. The fish spit Jonah out on dry land. And then God came to him again and said, called out the same words he told him previously. Go to Nineveh. God simply picked up where he had left off. That's what I want to linger on for a moment. God didn't replace Jonah. He didn't find someone more willing, more qualified, more excited for the assignment. He went back to the same reluctant, stubborn prophet, and he gave him the same mission again. Do you understand what that means for us? It means God's persistence is greater than our own resistance. It means our no doesn't have to be the final word. It means that the call doesn't expire just because we've spent some time, or a lot of time, heading in the wrong direction. Some of us think that our reluctance disqualifies us. The hesitation, the doubts, the months or the years we spent avoiding what we know deep down. We think, well, that ship is sailed. The moment has passed. I miss it. But Jonah's story tells us that God is perfectly willing to stop the ship, send the storm, provide the fish, whatever it takes to get our feet pointed back on the right direction. Father Smith had 5 decades of ministry. 5 decades. You think there weren't times he wanted to run, times he felt unqualified, times he doubted whether he was the right person for the job? Of course there were. He was human, just like the rest of us. But he learned something along the way, something that I'm still learning. That faithfulness isn't about never running. It's about eventually turning around. Father Smith didn't have to be here last week. He chose to. That's what a life of faithful response looks like. He kept showing up, kept mentoring, kept teaching, right up to the very end. He kept saying yes, not perfectly, but persistently. And that persistence built one small choice at a time, one day at a time. That persistence added to a life that left a mark on every single person in this room. So here's my question for you this morning. It's the only question that really matters, and I want you to sit with it. What is God calling you? What is God calling you toward that you've been running from? Maybe it's not a book. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's reconciliation. A conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a step of faith you've been too afraid to take, or a career change. Whatever it is, I want to tell you something from personal experience. You can keep running, but God's patience is longer than your legs. the call usually turns out to be less scary than we built it up in our own minds. Jonah finally went to Nineveh, preached a single sentence, and the entire city repented. All that running for something that took only 8 months. I'm not standing here this morning because I had some dramatic conversion moment where suddenly I wanted to preach. I'm not some naturally charismatic speaker who could command attention the moment I open my mouth. Those of you who know me, and most of you do, know that I'm more on the laid-back side. I talk when I have something to say. And honestly, most of the time, I'd rather listen than speak. But I'm not polished. I'm not formally trained for this. I'm just a parish youth coordinator who got access to give the message this morning. And against every instinct in my body, I said yes. But here's what I'm learning. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't have to be polished to be faithful. You don't have to have it all together to be useful to God. You just have to be willing. Even if your willingness is mixed in with reluctance, or even if you're scared. Father Smith saw something in me that morning. I don't know if he was right about the specifics, but I do know this. God's track record with reluctant people is strong. Moses stuttered. Jeremiah said he was too young. Peter denied Christ 3 times. Paul was actively persecuting Christians when God called for him. Now you notice the pattern? God doesn't wait for us to be ready. He makes us ready along the way. Each of us has an enemy. Something God has placed in our hearts, something we've been dodging, postponing, or rationalizing away. Some of you might be halfway across the ocean right now, but that's fine. God knows how to turn boats around. The question this morning isn't whether you're qualified. It's not whether the timing is perfect. It's not whether you feel ready. The question is whether you stop running long enough to listen. And then this is the harder part. Whether you turn around and take one step in the right direction. Father Smith spent over 50 years taking one step after another. He wasn't perfect. He was faithful. He kept saying yes, even when yes cost him something. Even when yes was inconvenient. Even when resting was well beyond his reach. He showed up. He served. He loved this church and this community with everything that he had. And I believe with all my heart that if there's one thing his life said to us, it's this. A faithful life is built one small yes at a time. Not big grand gestures. Just a lifetime of ordinary obedience, stacked up over the decades, until it becomes something beautiful and something that can leave a long-lasting legacy. Now to close, I don't know if I'll ever stand on this pulpit again. That's not my call to me, and honestly, I'm not losing any sleep over it. But I do know that this Sunday, May 3rd, 2026, I said yes to something that scared me. And if I could do that, then so can you. The God who called Jonah back from the depths is the same God who called Father Smith to serve for 50 years. He's the same God who stands at the door of your heart right now, patient as ever, gentle but persistent, asking you to take one step, not 50 steps, just one. Not a whole life all at once, but just one step. Now I'll leave you with this small suggestion. Don't wait until you're in a fish. Just take a step.